Welcome to the Charity Matters podcast. I'm Heidi Johnson, nonprofit founder, lifelong helper, and your host. I've been interviewing modern day heroes for over a decade with my blog, and I'm so excited to share these inspiring conversations in our podcast. Join me as we learn the challenges and stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and modern day heroes who set out to solve the problems of humanity. Did you know that 41% of children have experienced verbal abuse? 2 in 5 children have experienced that. And today's guest is no stranger. Join us for an incredible conversation with Jessica Bondy, the founder of Words Matter. I'm so excited to share her amazing journey and our conversation about all that she's doing to make a difference in our world. We are so excited to have Jessica Bondy today of Words Matter. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me on your program. I feel deeply, deeply honored. Thank you. I'm sitting here in the UK, but I feel really thrilled.
Well, we are thrilled to have you, and your lovely accent is a breath of fresh air for all of our listeners, I'm sure. So tell us a little bit, when I heard about Words Matter, the first thing that came to my mind is my mother saying, "You tell that little boy sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt you." And so tell me what Words Matter does, and then we'll get into it a little bit more.
So Words Matter is the first organization in the world focused solely on addressing the issue of verbal abuse of children by adults. It is so pervasive, it goes so unnoticed and not properly recognized, yet it affects 2 in 5 children. Wow. 2 in 5, 41% of children. And of that 2 in 5 children, over half experience verbal abuse by adults weekly, and 1 in 10 every single day of their lives.
Aww.
That's hearing words to blame, shame, belittle, criticize. And it's not just shouting and screaming. It can be quiet, insidious, and subtle. And I think that the thing that is most concerning about childhood verbal abuse by adults is the lifelong damage it can do to children. Mm-hmm. Because words matter. They stick. Yeah. They last a lifetime. They shape who we are and who we become. Absolutely. So we are on a mission to end verbal abuse of children by adults. And I set it up having spent decades in communication and working for some of the biggest brands in the world, be it for Samsung, British Airways, FedEx, Procter & Gamble, working as director and MD of some big firms and then setting up my own agency. And then I also coached and mentored a lot of young people, helping them realize their potential. And then one day I did a course all about women finding their voices and speaking up. And I had a eureka moment. And this eureka moment came on the 5th of the 6th week of this course, because every single week for this 6-week course, each week we'd be given a topic to talk about. And the 5th, the 6th week, this group of women, all on Zoom from around the world, the topic was, if you are going to die in the next 6 months, what do you want your legacy to be?
Wow.
So a very, very profound question.
Great question.
And I sat there on this wintry morning about 2 weeks ago, in where I'm talking to you now, and I sat at my pad and I made some notes. And this thing came from me out of nowhere. And after 10 minutes, it was my turn to stand up. And I said, if I'm going to die in the next 6 months, I don't want my legacy to be that I am a good aunt. I have a lot of nieces and nephews, but I don't have kids myself. I don't want my legacy being that I'm a communication specialist. And I don't want my legacy being that I coach and mentor young people to help realize their potential. I've done that always for a number of years, helping children and young people decide, kind of navigate the world, whether it was going into further education or getting a job, because there's so little available to young people. I said, I don't want it to be, I'm a good aunt, I'm a communications specialist, or I coach or mentor young people, even though all of those things to many people would be hugely worthwhile and satisfying.
Right.
I looked down the barrel of the camera on my Zoom computer and I said, if I'm going to die in the next 6 months, I want to end verbal abuse of children by adults because words matter.
Wow.
And I said this because of my own lived experience and words getting so locked in my head
Right.
from when I was young. And because of so many of the hundreds of people I'd coached and mentored, and the clients I'd had been so impacted by what they'd heard when they were growing up,
Right.
that made them question what they were capable of. And there was one girl in particular, a 15-year-old girl, who said to me, if this is what my mother thinks about me, what is the point of me being alive?
Oh, heartbreaking.
So
Absolutely
having had this kind of eureka moment, 2 months later, I thought, this is what I'm going to make my legacy. And I decided to set up this new charity because nobody else was focused on this issue in the entire world.
I mean, I have to say, I've interviewed hundreds of nonprofit founders, and every single person can tell you that moment. You called it a eureka moment. Oprah calls it an aha moment. Whatever that moment, it's almost like a lightning bolt that hits us. And I always wonder, like, there's 1.6 million nonprofits in the United States. I don't know how many are in the UK, but there are a lot. The UK is incredibly philanthropic, and I think, how is that bolt only hitting a select few people? So there is a backstory to all of this, and that's kind of what I want to get to too, because obviously you have this moment, but you don't just wake up and decide to do this. I mean, you did have this moment, but a lot of us have a moment and we don't act on it. But like, take us back to before the moment. Take us back to, did you grow up in a philanthropic family? Did you always help other people? You said you mentored people. Did you have role models that were, because starting a nonprofit is just not something that we just wake up and do. And most of us don't. Okay, a lot of us do, but there's a process. So lead us back a little bit, rewind the tape a little bit.
I'll rewind the tape, Heidi. I'll rewind the tape. So, I mean, dare I say it, I don't think my family was particularly philanthropic. I didn't grow up in that kind of household or organized, but one of the things I did is I took 2 years out of working in communication, working for a charity myself.
Oh, wow.
So I took 2 years out, and, probably a decade, 15 years before I decided to set up Words Matter. And that was to work for a charity, a cancer charity. And I wasn't doing communication at the time. I was doing corporate development work, which was kind of using my communication and marketing skills to go to corporates and come up with ideas that would add value to them and revenue to us. So I guess I'd had some experience of working with a charity and seeing what it was like to work for a nonprofit.
Right.
So there was that experience. I think the other aspect of it was really kind of feeling so rewarded by helping coach and mentor young people to help them realize their potential. I found it one of the most rewarding things. I mean, I recruited a lot of young people and gave them the kind of platform to launch their careers. And I always found that really rewarding, but then separately kind of coaching and mentoring lots of young people. And the huge change that can take place by being encouraging and positive and giving words of affirmation and saying they can do it and knowing the impact. And actually, I think what's so fascinating with what I'm doing now in Words Matter, it kind of all makes sense, because there I was communicating on behalf of businesses and brands. Then I was helping young people communicate and market themselves. And now I feel I'm almost the voice of children saying enough is enough, words matter. And I feel it is my purpose. I strongly believe that the only reason I'm on this planet is to do this thing. And because I experienced it myself and know the impact it's had, but I consider myself lucky because I kind of escaped it. My mode of escaping having these terrible things stuck in my head was through work. But so many people are so much less fortunate, and they are literally crippled by the lashings of self-loathing as a result of the words they've heard. And I just don't want it to be that way for the next generations and generations to come. I don't.
I think it's brilliant, and I think it's a gift. So after you had the aha moment, the light bulb goes off, you're like, okay, I'm doing this. Like I'm doing this because we have these moments, these that are they're undeniable. There's no walking away from them. Call it a calling, calling it a sign, call it whatever you want to call it. Um, they're real, and we know them, and we know there's no way around them. It's like right in front of you, and it's like this is what you're doing, and you can't deny it. So then what? Then you're like, okay, you obviously have a fabulous Rolodex, which is going to be so helpful for you in your fundraising and your nonprofit journey. I mean, what an advantage at this stage of your career and life to be able to have a group of people because,
Well,
99.
actually, it was interesting because I had to start from the beginning because it was such a new thing to do. And I
Right.
guess, and what was interesting, and I've still got it on my left-hand side on my desk, is before I thought of, in that 2-month period after I'd had my eureka moment, I did a little mood board. You know how one does these vision boards?
Vision boards,
A
yes.
vision board. And on this vision board, I had what I was doing, my coaching and mentoring, because I'd kind of stopped doing the communications consulting so much. And then I had Words Matter. And what was so interesting as I look at this vision board is Words Matter took the biggest amount of space. And then all the things I wanted to do associated with it. So the first thing I did, and it showed my passion, and that's when 2 months later I thought I'd really got to do this.
Right.
And the first thing I did was literally bury myself in books and research. And so, I mean, Amazon had a field day in terms of the number of books I bought and the amount of reading I did. They thought, oh, here's Jessica. A good day for us. And then after I'd done a lot of reading and research, I then reached out to experts because one of the things that I knew from my communications background and launching things and working for a lot of consumer campaigns is it's really important to me that everything is credible and evidence-based.
Right.
And so I reached out to these eminent people at Harvard. There was a great guy who's doing really interesting research on verbal abuse in the brain, and all these experts around the world, every corner of the world. And I wrote to them and I sent them a little simple email of 3 paragraphs, subject, hoping to talk to you about your research in relation to what I'm doing about verbal abuse. I said it goes so unnoticed and unrecognized, and I'm setting up this new charity, and I'd really like to talk to you. And as a charity, we're going to do 3 things. We're going to research the scale and impact. We're going to raise awareness, get this issue on the map, and provide education and training and do media campaigns. And thirdly, what's really important is we're going to collaborate with others, that's experts, decision makers, other organizations, and very importantly, those with lived experience to help develop and scale solutions. And then having sent these emails out into the ether, I then sat. And what was so amazing was in 1 or 2 hours, these eminent people came back to me.
Oh, wow. It's got the
And they
chills.
said they'd talk to me and they'd have a Zoom with me. I mean, who was I sitting at my little desk in my apartment, writing to these
Love
people?
it.
And they came back, and then I had a conversation, and they say, yes, you're right. This is such an important issue. Yes, this hasn't been dealt with before. And I had the confidence, the chutzpah, to say, would they join my advisory board? And they said, absolutely. We'd like to be part of our legacy too. And so
Oh,
I formed this
Jessica.
advisory board. And then I commissioned research, and I did research, and it was again being the thing is so much of life in general is it's important the company you keep. And I wanted to work with a really reputable, credible, respected organization. So I went to, University College London and the leading researcher on adverse childhood experiences. And I commissioned a big piece of research called a systematic review, where you look at all the published data on a particular subject. It had never been done on verbal abuse.
Interesting.
Then I did something called a Delphi study, which is where you're getting consensus of opinion about what the definition should be, who should be involved, and what the priority actions. And of course, it was all about awareness and education. And then I did research amongst parents and children, group work, and then I did quantitative work where you're trying to get some hard facts and figures. And then I started having lots of meetings with people.
So talk to me about some of the challenges, because obviously starting a nonprofit, being an entrepreneur, I always say the business model isn't ideal. Relying on the kindness of others to fund change is not always an easy structure. Building community is not always easy. Building consensus around something you care about that people don't know anything about isn't easy. Talk to me about some of the challenges that you've run into, and obviously, and hearing this too. On the flip side of that, we know we're on the right path when they reply to the email. We know we're in the right sign when all these wonderful things happen that keep propelling us forward toward that vision board. And those signs are so obvious and unmistakable that you're on the right path, that you keep going. But there are bumps in the way. So tell us about a couple of challenges.
There are bumps in the way, and it was very interesting because when I first talked to a few people about setting up a charity, I remember one guy who'd worked with a lot of charities, and I said, "What's the one piece of advice you'd give me about setting up a nonprofit?" And he said, "I wouldn't do it."
Sounds about right.
Which was which was an interesting bit of feedback. But anyway, of course I just went ahead. But I think part of the challenge is when you believe something incredibly passionate yourself, there are people that don't necessarily believe in what your cause is.
Right.
And I found there's a real dichotomy of people. There's people that get it. And I've had people who literally burst into tears and said, "Oh gosh, I haven't spoken to my father since I was 14. It's so brilliant you're doing something about this." And those that don't understand it, who say, but are supportive of this myth that sticks and stones can break your bones and words can never hurt you, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and don't get it. And I think the other very challenging thing, given the environment we are in today, is fundraising.
100%.
And that is very, very hard, because particularly if you're a new charity, because so many funders, they want to be reassured that you're going to succeed, that you've got a track record. And if you're new and different and starting up, like anything entrepreneurial, it's hard. It is hard. And I guess I'm used to selling services. I ran my own agency, and I was selling consulting services, and people were buying the services. They were getting something in return.
Correct.
Philanthropy is very, very different. People are doing it because they believe in your cause, and they believe that you are going to make a difference in the world.
Yep.
They're not really getting anything back. And that's one of the...
It depends. Yes, but that you're correct. You don't have a tangible service, but there is, I think one of the things that people get back from philanthropy is obviously a sense that they made a difference and they want to be a part. I always say it's like the movie Harry Met Sally. People that are living a life of purpose have something everybody else wants, and they look over and they're like, "I want what she's having." And people want what we have, which is joy, purpose, focus. I mean, there's something that it comes at a cost. We're not doing it to get rich, um, but there's something about our lives that are uniquely different than other people's lives, and people wanna be a part of that.
I think
And
that's absolutely true, Heidi. And I think if I look at, you've talked about the positives, and I've kind of almost created a new family of people that are just supporting me. And these people are extraordinary. If you look at my advisory board and other people, they are incredible. And they have, believed me and what we're trying to do, and other people involved in this from conversations and meetings. And you're absolutely right. They want to be part, they can see a need, something resonates in them personally. Maybe they've been fortunate enough to have words that have built them up. Others may have had words that have knocked them down, but they can see the real need of doing this, and they're excited about something new and important being put out into the world.
right, and I think that's so fantastic. So, I mean, what fuels you when the days are tough? I mean, you still have laundry, you still have bills, you're still dealing with just life, and there are days you're just like, "Oh god, I didn't think this was gonna be so difficult. Doing good should not be hard." I mean, that's what I find myself saying, "Why is doing good hard? It should be easy to do good." And yet it's as hard as anything else you do, sometimes even harder. So what fuels you in those moments to keep going?
I think what fuels me is an absolute passion and belief in the need for this to happen in the world. And actually, the knowing that even from conversations of people that I've coached and mentored, whose parents, whose teachers know what I'm doing, it's changing their behavior. So that fuels me, knowing that we can make a difference. I think the other thing that fuels me is this incredible network of experts and supporters and my fellow trustees who who have that belief and say, you've cracked so many nuts, you'll be able to crack this nut. It's just another nut you've got to crack. And it's just another little
It
hurdle
is.
you've got to get across. Just remember what you've achieved to date, and you know that you'll get there. And I think it's that keeps me going. And I think it's this. I feel like I've kind of got uh, almost a rocket of support underneath me to
Oh,
try
so
and make
good.
it a success.
And that's what we need and we create. I mean, we're building a community that doesn't exist. And in some cases people are replicating and this is in no way disparaging that, but if you have a breast cancer, some sort of community in your city, it's your city's breast cancer. There's national, there's international, there's all levels of it. But when you're bringing something that hasn't happened before, it's kind of like, I use this example. My husband, this is a fact, but my husband in college invented the power bar as an MBA program as a project, and they laughed at him and told him it would never happen, the energy bar. Obviously now he did not get it. He did not do that. A lot of other entrepreneurs did it, but the world wasn't ready for what he was trying to present. You're trying to present an idea that someone doesn't quite have their head around yet. And it's the same in philanthropy. We're trying to bring awareness of something that people haven't quite heard about, and they're like, "Well, wait, that's a problem?" Like, I 'cause they're not their mindset isn't ready for it, and
Yeah, I mean, I think with what I'm doing now, I feel I'm fortunate in the timing feels
Mhm.
right.
Yes,
If
I
you
would
think
agree.
of the move that we've gone from concern about physical health
Mhm,
to mental health,
mhm.
it's the time from moving to physical abuse to, people are much more aware about
I agree.
mental health and health in general. And I think, and also what is and what isn't acceptable. And I think that the timing couldn't have been better.
Mhm. I agree with that. I
So I
absolutely agree
feel,
with that.
I feel maybe if I'd thought of this 5, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have had the same response.
Right. I agree with that. I agree with that. So, impact is a word that I and you probably will learn since you are new to the nonprofit space, to love and hate because it's wonderful to assess. It's wonderful to show your constituents that you are making a difference. It's wonderful to bring all these facts together. But sometimes you can't measure. I mean, I run a youth leadership organization. You talked about mentoring, and I'm raising young leaders and mentoring them and teaching these skills. But measuring leadership is an impossible task. It is not easy. And measuring what you're doing is going to be interesting as well. So, talk to me about impact in any way. I mean, you've shared a couple little stories, and I know you're just getting going. But what do you think your impact has been, and what do you think it's going to be? Because you've like kind of a three-prong approach, as you're saying you're trying to.
So we launched in September 2023. And when we
Dear
launched,
baby.
we're a baby. And when we launched in September 2023, our website went live and we released the findings of our children's survey that I mentioned. 2 in 5 children experience it. And we also released the most helpful and hurtful words that children said. And we shared who were the main people talking to children in this way, which was parents, carers, teachers, activity leaders, and friends' parents. But there's a kind of long tail of any adult really around children. And what was really then that got various bits of publicity. And so on our 3 pillars, we've got research and what we see is in terms of delivering outcomes and outputs, which isn't impact, is getting published data, validation
Right.
of the scale and impact. Then the next kind of pillar is about awareness, and that's trying to change perception and increase understanding and awareness. And so when we're getting coverage that's from third-party media or people talking about the issue, I mean, that's very positive for us. And then the other thing we're developing is training and education and information. So we've had our resources. We developed some resources on how to talk to children from adults, for parents, for teachers, those with lived experience. And those have been downloaded a number of times. And that is also another important measure for us. We had the first international conference on childhood verbal abuse about a month ago, and we did it with WHO and University College London, that's the World Health Organization. We had over 1,300 people registered to attend, and actually 98% said it had they'd found it useful and they would apply the information to their to their jobs. And 96% said they would, they'd share the information with other people. And over 90% said it would change their own behavior and reflect on their own behavior and change it.
Wow.
And 99% wanted another event. It was all about Words Matter. It's called Words Matter: Impact and Prevention of Childhood Verbal Abuse. And so when we're just piloting a training program and we're doing pre-research to show what people know and understand about childhood verbal abuse and how to talk to children and its impact before we do the training, and then their knowledge and understanding after the training.
Interesting.
To look at the sort of impact of our work.
Right. That's
and
fascinating.
Then certainly on the collaboration side, the third pillar is really about how we can scale up and the kind of delivery of training and interventions to a lot of people. So we've developed this program, we're piloting it, and then hopefully it'll be extended through our network of partners. So we've got a number of different leading charities supporting our mission who are service providers, and we're hoping to do the training through them and their networks.
They'll distribute it. That's fantastic. Yeah. That's brilliant. So if you could dream any dream for Words Matter, what does that look like?
Gosh, if I could dream any dream for Words Matter, it would be that in everybody's public consciousness, they'd be aware of and acknowledge the harm that words adults say to children can have, they'd understand it. And I think what's so interesting is as soon as you ask adults themselves to think about what they remember when they were a child, so many, the vast, vast majority can remember what was said to them that made them, that built them up, and what and who said it to them that knocked them down. But they don't somehow apply it to their own lives when they are an adult.
Right.
There's a kind of disconnect. So I'd like widespread acknowledgement of it. I'd like this sort of important information incorporated in all training programs for parents, new parents, all training programs for teachers who are doing teacher training, who know how important it is, the words they say in their schools, all the training of coaches. But, you know, in an ideal world, Heidi, I would like not to have to exist.
Right. Right.
I'd like enough people to know, to understand it, and it to be, you know, people to talk to children in a better way.
Well, I mean, that's we take on as nonprofits, we take on humanity's problems. We take on the challenges that nobody really wants to pick up and clean up and fix or educate or shine a light on. And people walk by, say things, do things, whatever the messy things that come with being a human that happen. Somehow our nonprofit community, the helpers, I like to say, we see something and we're like, we need to help fix that. That can't, that doesn't work. That's not okay. We can't
Well,
do
that
that.
can't continue.
It can't continue. It's not okay. It's just not okay. So I love that this is coming to the forefront. So do you have a motto, Jessica, or like something that you live by, or something that's kind of been your tried and true, your favorite words, perhaps?
Gosh, I think you can do it, and you know, if you don't ask, the answer will always be no.
Yeah, I think that is definitely good. And
I
by
think
the way,
I think you've got to be courageous in this world. You've got to be courageous, particularly if you're running a nonprofit. You've got to just know that if you don't step forward, you'll always be in the same place. If you don't ask, as I said before, the answer will always be no. And you've just got to go for it, because if you've got that passion and drive, other people will come on board with you.
100%, because it is contagious, and you're going to use that. You are primed for the nonprofit space because you're going to ask a lot, and there's going to be a lot of no's, but you're just going to keep on asking, and it's going to be fantastic. So I know you're a newbie, and I don't mean that in a negative way at all. But when we talk about life lessons on the journey, I don't mean just the lessons from September until now. But there's been a lot of lessons for you even in the process of thinking about doing this. So what do you think those lessons have been since you've kind of had this epiphany and really been thinking about connecting the dots, maybe as you've mentioned, of your life, how one thing has led to the next that got you here, which was a path you didn't think you would
I
be
mean,
on.
I think I'm somebody that is a survivor. And, you know, one has to, I think I'm quite a resilient person, and resilience is so important. And I just think it's about somehow dusting oneself off if you have a knockback. It's not easy to do. And I think what's important in life, and this is so true of people who've experienced verbal abuse or any form of abuse, is that you just need one or two people in your life that really believe in you, that really believe in you, that you can talk to and get that support from. And we all, you know, it's so important to have that connection and support from a very, very young age. And so, you know, I've had a few people in my life who I feel have really been there for me, and that makes a really, and believed in me, because at the end of the day, we all want to be seen and heard for who we are and valued for who we are. which is why Words Matter is so important, because people need that positive
Absolutely.
affirmation and support. I think that other lessons I've learned in life are, I think that the other one is that you're not going to be approved or liked by everyone. You have to just accept it, or people aren't going to follow your path, and it's just somehow keep going and to find those people who are of your tribe.
Right.
And that's really important. And don't find your voice. And I think one of the biggest things for me, and actually the most exciting thing for me since going on that course, and it took me decades to go on that course which is all about finding your voice and speaking up, is the kind of confidence to be sure of oneself. And one of my big life lessons is go with your gut.
Amen.
Trust your gut. And if you feel uncomfortable or anything is niggling in your gut that may not be right, do not go against your gut. Don't.
Amen. Amen. I tell my sons all the time, well, what does your gut say? They're like, why are you listening to your stomach? Because it knows the answer. Inside, we all know our inner compass is there if we just listen to it. It is there. And it's the same compass that told you to start Words Matter.
Exactly. And so often in my life, when I've gone, for whatever reason, one tries to mold oneself into something, or be liked or approved or understood by some, it never feels comfortable. And one should be surrounded. There's a great expression: surround yourself with radiators, not drains.
I like that. I have not heard that one. I like that one. Well, I think you are most definitely a radiator, Jessica. There is not a doubt in my mind that you are a radiator. And I'm really excited just to follow this journey and see where it goes, because I think you're just off to the races and it's going to be really fantastic. Tell us how we can support you, donate, get involved, share materials, everything. So tell us
Thank
where we can.
you. Well, so our website is www.wordsmatter.org. And on there, you'll find all sorts of brilliant resources. We've done a fabulous little video, and you can download any of the resources that are there and find out information about what we're doing, and helplines and contact details and anything else. You can also very, very easily donate. We're registered with CAF America, which is fabulous. They've approved us, so anybody in the States can donate, which would be wonderful, and support our various initiatives. If anybody wants to volunteer and help our efforts and work, we've got people in Australia, we've got some people in America, we've got, but the more the merrier, that will help and support our mission is fantastic. We'd love, as you know, fundraising is hard, and we'd love donations. Every single dollar would make a difference to our work and would change the lives of children and help educate and train parents and teachers and everybody else. All our social media handles are under kind of Words Matter Charity. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on X, formerly known as Twitter. So please do follow us. But above all, listeners, think about what you say to children. And let's build children up, not knock them down. We know from our research that positive words can make them feel happy, motivated, confident, believing in themselves. And the top 5 words we know that make children feel good about themselves are: I'm proud of you, I believe in you, I'm here for you, it's okay to make mistakes, you can learn from them, and I love you.
I love that. Jessica, thank you so much for a wonderful message, a wonderful reminder for all of us, the incredible work you're doing, the radiating that you're doing in our world, and being such a bright light. And words do matter, as does charity. Charity matters, words matter. And I've really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Heidi. It's been an utter pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Charity Matters podcast. I so enjoyed talking to Jessica about what it takes to start a business that truly changes people's lives. I think her comment about trusting your gut and finding your voice was so inspiring and true. To learn more about these modern-day heroes and entrepreneurs, or if you'd like to reach out to us, visit us at charity-matters.com or connect with us on Instagram at Charity Matters. If you enjoyed our conversation, we would love it if you shared it with your family and friends. And please don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. But more than that, thank you for caring, for believing in goodness, and for being a part of our movement. You are exactly what the world needs more of. Remember that together we can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. Charity matters. See you next time.